My name is Sue Mailman, and I'm the current chair of the Urban Division, which has been newly taken out of the ground, maybe? It was here for a while. Yeah, resurrected, that's a better word. Taken out of the ground is not very nice. And we're excited to have some people join us for our second meeting. That's a big win for us, but we have a great topic and a great speaker. Sam Lambert from Everett is on with me. She is the secretary of this division, and Melissa Costa from New Bedford is not able to join so far tonight, but we may see her pop in. As new to this, I don't know. I can see names, and I'm just gonna kind of reach out. Maybe you can tell us where you're from. Is it Jorge Vega?
Yes, it is. Hi, I'm Jorge. I am the very, very new member of the school committee in Brockton, representing Ward 1. I'm here alongside my colleague, Tim Sullivan. I see you, Tim.
Yeah.
Awesome. This is great. Thank you. That's urban for sure. That's great. And Mr. Garrity, I follow you on Twitter.
Yes, William Garrity. I'm somewhat recently new elected school committee member for Pittsfield. I started January, but I've been a student rep before, so I've been in it for a while.
Thank you. Yes, I've followed you on Twitter for a while too. You teach me things. Thank you. And Al Charles?
Al Charles. I am the school committee member from the Franklin, town of Franklin. And I guess this is my first time. And Sam and I go actually way back for work days, Comcast.
Oh, that's great. You're recruiting, Sam. Thank you. That's awesome. You just know it. And Tim, you're the other member that's here.
Yes, my name is Tim Sullivan. I'm Ward 7 School Committee in Brockton. I've been there for almost 14 years now.
Awesome.
This is my first time coming to a meeting on Zoom with Matt.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. Thanks for being here. And I hope you'll kind of follow along, because we need to develop something. I think I think the rural folks are getting started and excited about it. And I think there's a real need for urban. Sam, did you want to say anything?
Hi, Sam Lambert. I'm serving my third term on the Everett School Committee. As I always say, don't Google us. So my 5th year, and excited to see what we can all do.
Great. Okay. Well, we have I want to thank Tracy Novick, a friend of mine from Worcester and a former colleague with me, but always a colleague with me. And so Tracy's the rep for this division, and she brings tremendous experience, and I have tremendous respect. And Glenn's on the phone, and Alicia's on the phone, and Anthony. So we have a couple of others out. There's 2 more, and then I'm going to stop after that and just let Jason take us over, because you got a good topic tonight. Is it Tony Rodriguez, maybe?
Yes.
Just say hi, where you're from, Tony. Or
Tony,
maybe later.
if he's not connected. Yeah, Tony is also another member of the school committee from Brockton.
Oh,
he's
awesome.
he's our vice chair, actually.
This is great. Okay. And Erica?
All right. Hi, sorry about that. I was trying to unmute for some reason. It was
Happy
frozen.
to meet you.
Nice to meet everybody. It's Tony Rodriguez. I'm the Ward 4 school committee member, and I'm also the vice chair for this elective session. Nice
That's
to meet
awesome.
everyone.
Good to meet you. Erica?
Yep, I am in Medford.
Nice to meet you. We got a few towns. We got some. Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm going to hand it over to Jason for our program tonight. The good thing about Urban is we will be done when we're done. We don't just stay on the phone or Zoom till 7:30 for the fun of it. We move right along. Right, Jason?
That's right. I'm a classroom teacher. My kids tell me that one of the reasons I'm popular is because I don't give busy work. We only do what's necessary. We try and enjoy and have fun and make meaning out of what we're learning every day. And hopefully we can bring that tonight. And again, with a smaller group tonight, please feel free to chime in at any point. If I'm going over something that to me seems like old hand, and to you, it's completely new, just tell me to pause, rewind, and explain it. And if I don't explain it a way that you understand, ask me to reframe it, and I'll try and give it back to you in another way. So I'm Jason Frazier. I'm also a school committee member, just like all of you. I serve on the Plimpton School Committee, and I serve on the Silver Lake Regional School Committee. So my Brockton people were very local to one another. Good to see you all representing here today with me. And to those of you from around the state, super excited to have you with us tonight.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. At MASC, I have a couple of roles. I am the president-elect of the organization. I was actually the Division III chair for quite some time, the Southeast region of Massachusetts. I am also the legislative chair, and as an ex officio role of my president-elect, I am also this year's resolutions chair as well. So that's why we're here tonight, is to talk about how do we get to that point where a resolution is brought forth in front of the delegate assembly down in Hyannis in November for MASC. So one of the ways that this happens is by school committees taking up a cause. Maybe it's a parent comes in and asks a particular question, and it really generates an idea and gets the minds of the committee thinking. That can be the impetus of where a resolution might come from. It very often comes from frustrations you might be feeling, whether it be through some state policies and laws that are affecting you in ways that maybe the legislators hadn't intended, or maybe it's a piece of legislation you'd like to see put into the books and become MGL or CMR, right? Mass General Law, a code of Massachusetts regulations. I'm going to bring you through just a story of how one of the resolutions that I myself have brought from my local school committee forward to the delegate assembly at MASC. So we had a parent come in once asking us about our kitchen at the Plimpton School. My Plimpton School is 253 kids. We are a rural setting, and we have what's called a warming kitchen. And there was a lot of parents concerned about what exactly that meant. But for some reason it came to, do we have enough staff to wash dishes? Why don't we have trays? You know, why are we using these styrofoam trays? And a lot of us on the school committee hadn't even contemplated what kind of trays we were using in our own school. So we started talking about moving from polystyrene trays into compostable trays, ones that can be recycled, can go into the garbage, and it becomes part of the landfill instead of sitting there for thousands and thousands of years. So we made the commitment at the local level to start using compostable trays. And we started doing some research, and we're like, man, some of this polystyrene stuff's really bad, especially when you put hot food on it or acidic food on it. It can cause carcinogens to possibly leak into the food. And we do recycling with the kids, right? We're teaching them, be responsible to the earth, take care of our planet. And here we are serving them on polystyrene trays. So we started to put together some talking points of why we were shifting from polystyrene to compostable trays just for our own constituents. Because of course it was a little bit more money. We were going up a few cents a tray, and that adds up over the course of 180 school days with all the kids who were eating our meals in there. We had to convince our constituents locally that this was worth making the move for the educational reasons, for the health reasons, for the environmental reasons. And at the end of the day, we realized that we actually had some great talking points. And that's when I suggested, hey, maybe this is a resolution we want to share statewide, right? And the whole idea of writing a resolution and sharing it with MASC can be extremely intimidating for the first time person approaching this, right? That's very jargony. There's a lot of whereas and whereas and further let it be resolved. It can get a little bit intimidating. And what I need you to understand is I am here, and there's members of the staff who are here, and there's other school community members who are here who'd be more than happy to take a great idea that you and your school committee come up with and help you craft some of that language. So when you bring it forth, it's something you can be proud of, and it says what you want it to say. Okay, so the whereases that you see in all these resolutions, well, whether it just be one that you do locally and you send to your legislature, if you do it as, you know, the school committee and you send it to your city council, the whereases are the reason why what you're about to say makes sense and needs to happen, right? So these are the key topics to support your main idea. So it's a little bit opposite of how we write a paragraph. We usually start with our main idea, then we give the background to support. The whereases are the supports. What's really important is when you get to therefore let it be resolved. That is the thing that you're trying to get across the finish plate. That's the big idea that you're trying to share out to other school committees across the state. I get charged as the legislative chair with bringing forth MASC's legislative agenda to the State House and to Capitol Hill down in DC. And I get charged by 3 different ways. One, if it's something that's a real time sensitive issue, the executive board of MASC can authorize me to speak on their behalf for the whole organization. That's our least favorite way of doing this because it's the least democratic way of us running our organization. The next best thing to having all of our members involved is the board of directors, which Sue's a member of the board of directors. She sits there with us monthly and speaks for the urban division. Sometimes we will charge the legislative chair with going out and advocating for certain positions. Okay, but the best way for me to really have the membership's voice behind me is hearing from all of you at the delegate assembly and passing these resolutions. I don't, when I go down to Washington, D.C., or I go up to Beacon Hill, bring all the whereases with me. And to be honest with you, I very rarely even bring the therefore let it be resolved, right? So I don't want people to get mired down in making sure this is edited to the point of perfection and that it needs to be something that we could put out in a newspaper for everyone in the state to read and be proud of. Guys, we're colleagues here. You got a good idea. We'll work with you. We'll help you craft it. And God forbid, down at the delegate assembly, I would actually prefer a bunch of people don't try and edit as a group, because Glenn Kuchar, our executive director, has said that group editing is one of the biggest crimes in the world, right? Let's not do that. So offline's the way to go, right? Offline's the way to go. Reaching out to me, reaching out to some of the staff of MASC, reaching out to colleagues who've done this before, it is definitely the best way. So you come up with this great idea, start crafting some language. How do we then get it from your school committee to MASC's resolution committee? Your school committee needs to take a vote on the record, and then you need to transmit to me via either your chair or your recording secretary that this vote has been taken and give me the outcome of that vote, whether it be unanimous or simple majority. Just let me know that it's been approved by the majority of your members. And this needs to be done if you want to get one in this year by June 1st, right? So we're already pretty close to that deadline. I then have a group of individuals who will be meeting in Marlborough, and we'll be taking all the resolutions from across the state. And our job is to make sure that it actually is in the scope of the association. And that's something that's been challenged recently at some of our delegate assemblies. Some people think if it's not specific to Chapter 70, if it's not specific to the exact time the bell rings in the morning to that time the bell rings in the afternoon, that MASC has no business taking up these issues. Well, I would argue that those people are absolutely wrong. The children of our schools' lives are molded and designed outside of the walls of our schools. And we know that very well as people who are committed to the education of these students. The social safety nets that surround these kids and their families to support them, so they're available for the learning when they get to us, is absolutely in the purview of MASC. And those are the types of resolutions we would be happy to look at as well. It does not have to be just the day-to-day stuff that's happening within the walls of your schools. So,
can I ask a question? Jason, do you know how many resolutions are sitting out there this year that you're going to work on at the resolutions meeting?
So this is like a rainstorm. right? You can see the clouds coming, you know you're about to get a whole bunch. We don't really get the majority of the resolutions until May. So I've had trickle in here and there. I've heard from school committees who are taking up different ideas around the state. I've also heard of school committees from different parts of the state who have similar concerns and similar issues crafting together. And that's what we actually would prefer as an organization. The formal way that we accept a resolution is if we get 5 school committees from Massachusetts from at least 2 of our geographical regions. If we get the same resolution from 5 different school committees from the 2 different geographical regions, it bypasses the resolutions committee, it bypasses the board of directors, and it goes straight to the delegate assembly. Nobody touches it. Nobody's allowed. It goes straight from the people to the people, and then it gets voted in November. Unfortunately, we have had in the past few years, less and less school committees feeling confident enough to put forward some resolutions. So we started this workshop that we're all doing together today about 3 years ago. And we have seen an uptick in school committees bringing resolutions forth. And we just recently, 2 years ago, had our first resolution brought to us by 5 different school committees from 2 geographical regions.
Wow.
And it passed at the delegate assembly. And Sue Mailman, I believe you might have been part of that.
Yes, I was actually hope maybe Tracy could kind of give a quick summary of what we did in Worcester.
Yeah, please. I would love that. Hey, Trace.
I didn't know I was going to be put on the spot.
You just were.
Yeah, so actually, and tonight, and what Jason is referring to is actually really exactly the way that we did it. So seeing what was going on across the country with regard to medical care for trans youth, we a bunch of us from a couple of different school committees, because remember, you can talk to members from other school committees without breaking the open meeting law. Isn't that helpful? Just make sure that if you're on the kind of regional that Jason or Alicia are, that, you know, you keep that parts in mind. But and we together crafted language that was a resolution. And what we did was we, within, I think it was 2 weeks, put it on all of our agendas at the same time, because we were running up against the deadline too. I think that we did it in April and May. You can still turn it around if you know your schedule and can do it tightly enough, and feel confident that you potentially can get the majority. But knowing that if you line up 5 committees to all do the same resolution that are in at least 2 geographic divisions, you can actually do that bypassing. So what Jason's talking about, if there are things that you know are of common concern, and certainly, you know, we saw some of that with Day on the Hill and some other things, that's still something that is absolutely, I think, possible.
I'm glad you could bring the color to that. That was awesome. Like, that was something I was hoping would come about through the hard work of really doing some of this workshop with school committee members from across the state. We had a year where the majority of our resolutions came directly from the resolutions committee or the board of directors. And again, we're trying to really be the most democratic organization we can be. We have 2,500 members across the state of elected and appointed officials. It's something that I'm always proud to say when I go talk to our legislators, that we, MASC, are actually the largest association of elected and appointed officials in the entire state, right? We reach right back to those constituents. We talk to parents. We see what happens with our actions in the classrooms and how it affects the kids of our schools every single day. And that's a very powerful tool for us to use when we're trying to advocate at the state level and at the federal level, is that touch point with the constituents, because we share constituents with some of those people in Washington and up in Boston, right? But we're also doing very important work taking care of our youth and the future of our country. So yes, we have now started to get resolutions from other school committees. Yes, we've had a formal resolution come right to the delegate assembly. And what we're also working on this year is an opportunity for some of you who might want to jump into the waters of putting a resolution forth, but you're not quite ready to create your own. We have some resolutions that are expiring this year. We passed a bylaw last year at the delegate assembly that has a sunset provision on all of our resolutions. That was partially to allow the legislative committee to have a more defined slate of priorities to bring to the legislature. But it was also to give people in our organization an opportunity to either reaffirm an issue or say, that's no longer a priority for our organization. It's bringing it back to the people yet again. It just doesn't leave things on the book in perpetuity. We need to actively, as an organization, say, yes, we still believe in this. Yes, we still want that. No, that's not relevant anymore. Let's leave that in the dust. Okay. Focuses us as an organization, but allows voices to be heard. So I know that Anthony had put out an email, and on our MASC webpage, there is a list of those expiring resolutions. At some point in this conversation tonight, when I'm not doing all the talking, I will throw that list into the chat for you too. So it's right there for you to find easily. And if you and your committee want to adopt one or more of those expiring resolutions, this is a nice, easy way for you to maybe bring your group into the fold and get them interested and see some of that language. And then maybe next year, if this year's not your year, maybe next year is the year you bring us a new and unique one that you and your school district want to bring forth. So that's where I am with the resolutions talk. I'd be more than happy to take some questions, see where we want to go from there. Oh, Anthony is on the line, and he put the, thank you, Anthony. Appreciate you being there and listening up. So Sue, if you want to be the MC, feel free, but I'm ready to take some questions and we can chat about this a little bit more informally.
So, give us a sense, if you can, Jason, of the, I guess there must be some patterns, whether you see resolutions around dollar items that impact our school committees or other things. You talked about the social emotional side of the house. Tracy talked about a great example in Worcester that's a real big picture item in my mind, and it was exciting to work on that one. What do you have a sense might be the excitement this year about resolutions, or that might come forward?
Again, I don't have a sense on where we might be landing because the resolutions are very eclectic. Yeah, there's always one about dollars and cents and trying to make sure that we're finding equity in the funding of education, particularly from how the state is funding us. So I would be shocked if we didn't have a resolution asking for that inflation index to be 4.5 and have catch-up years until we see it. I also had the pleasure of sitting down at the table at Day on the Hill on Monday with a gentleman from Haverhill who wrote a white paper about increasing the index even beyond 4.5. We had a very, very long conversation. He's an economist. He knows how it's affecting the gateway schools around the state. You know, we might have a different opinion on how we get back to those dollars that we've lost due to the inflation index not being realistic. But we're definitely all on the same page that there's dollars that the state owes us to help us run our schools, right? I said this several times recently, 2.5% plus local growth does not run a public school in Massachusetts in 2024, right? So I do also know there might be a resolution talking about tying the required minimum contribution of cities and towns to the Proposition 2.5 levy limit. So let's say the state says to your city that, hey, your contribution's going up by 3.7% this year. Well, then you should be able to raise your property taxes by 3.7% that year. It's an idea. I don't know. I don't know where I fall on it yet, but I understand where it's coming from. And I've read the whereases that the individual who's thinking about this came from. The evidence is strong that we should not be taxing people at a 2.5% increase when we're getting numbers from the state and we're getting numbers from reality that are far in excess of 2.5%. Yeah. And the state's not coming through with enough to meet us where we need to be to keep our kids having a high quality education. I mean, I don't know how often people think about this, but Massachusetts, if it was not part of the 50 states, if we were our own nation, we consistently rank in the top 5 nations in the world. Our kids, Massachusetts, in reading, in math, and in science. I would love to stay on the top. I don't want to see us go from the top to the bottom. And part of that is investing dollars. So yeah, money comes into it a lot soon.
Yeah.
One of the resolutions I was really excited about, proud to be part of, was our resolution on not suspending kids all the time for like not taking their hat off, and a teacher just gets frustrated. Now we're going to suspend a kid when all the research in the world says when you suspend a kid, they are more likely to become court involved. They're more likely to be incarcerated, and there's disproportionality of who's getting suspended. And even in Massachusetts, we passed a resolution, and we, as an organization, said, unless it's a violent crime, unless it's a felony, unless there's some major drugs involved here, like there needs to be some sort of education. That is our charge, is to educate these children. Why was what you did wrong not okay? What are the alternatives to do? Is there some sort of restorative justice practices that we can put into these kids' lives to help them be fully productive members of society when they're done with us at age 18, 19, 22, whenever they're ready to leave us and move on? We got it codified in MGL. We fought and fought and fought, and we got it put in. It's called 37 3/4, right? 37 3/4. The superintendents and the principals are going absolutely out of their minds right now because we made it harder for them to suspend students, and their workloads increased. And guess who I represent? I represent those kids. I don't represent the principals and superintendents of Massachusetts. I compensate my principals and superintendents as well as I can, right? If you don't like the job, my kids, take care of my kids. Don't just kick them out because they're not following your arbitrary rules. Let's teach them. Let's teach them. It's not just math. It's not just science. Teaching them how to be good people, how to make good choices. So that resolution came right from us, and it went all the way to the State House. We formed partnerships with some justice alliances, some juvenile justice alliances. And we got that put into state law. It's one of the things I'm the most proud of, coming out of the resolutions committee all the way through the delegate assembly. And now I see it in black and white in that book, in the MGL book. Big, big stuff can happen. Your dreams right now that you're thinking, and maybe we have this little idea, we're afraid to put it forth. Please don't be afraid. It might be the best thing that's ever happened to a kid in your district or all the kids in our state. And the cool thing is sometimes we push it up to the federal level too with NSBA, and every kid in our nation could be impacted by your little idea right now, because it might be a big deal to somebody out there.
Thank you. I'm like pumped. I don't know about the rest of you. That was great. We have a lot of Brockton people on the call, and I'm just wondering if Brockton has something on their mind. And if they do, that you guys are working on and want to share it, like I'm happy to hear it, or anybody else, if it's any of the other towns that are represented as well, or we're open for questions. So take yourself off mute, and I'm going to be quiet.
Tony speaking. This was brought in the last election cycle. I know Mr. Vega's new, but I think Mr. Sullivan, I'm not sure if he was part of the conversation. One of the areas that I'm concerned about is when we look at the dropout, which is, kind of slightly increased on the Brockton side. There's a large number. I'm a big advocate that I believe that the dropout age of 16 needs to be raised to 18. So, I've had conversations with my cousin who is a state senator. She agrees. I've talked to some of the members of the committee. I wanted to actually have a conversation. I know it kind of dwindled with everything that we're dealing with Brockton, but that's one major issue that I have. I think, we do need to raise the age from 16 to 18 in Massachusetts, and making sure that these students get educated. As we know, you can't rent a house at the age of 16. You can't get a credit card at the age of 16. You can't rent a vehicle at the age of 16. So how are we allowing these students at the age of 16 to drop out? How are they going to fend for themselves, or how are they going to navigate in the real world at that young age? So I think, that should be something that, statewide we should focus to make sure we raise that age. And the other piece about it is, when we look at education, my background is in criminal justice and working for the prison system. You're seeing the change of juvenile age, saying from 17 to 18, now they want to go to 21. Now you have that mental health aspect of it. So that's one of the, I could pinpoint a lot of different issues. So I would love to see a resolution, a law passed, other districts getting on board if we can get the whole state, and making sure that, that would be a huge milestone for Massachusetts, as we are looked at as one of the leaders in education.
That's a cool example. Do you think you could get that passed on your school committee?
Hands down, I think it would be unanimous. I don't want to speak for, I see Mr. Sullivan on here, and he's the dean of the school committee in Brockton. Been there for many years, and Mr. Vega just joined on, and he's an educator. The reason why I see it is I see that prisoner pipeline in the prison system, where, being an employee of the Mass DOC for 23 years, the age of the individuals that are incarcerated it's decreasing very young. There was a point where, I'll speak to my facility where I worked at, Norfolk, that, we had to, shut the prison yard down because we had 2 juveniles that were in there. And because the law changed, that we had to actually, shut portions of the prison just so these individuals can move around, because they were juveniles and they were in a male facility, because, the law restricted that. So I would love to, I could work with our legal counsel and represent for Mask and draft up a language, and I could take, bring that to, the Brockton School Committee, and we can take a vote, and we can have other districts with support of Mask and everybody else sign on, and we can make that push through the legislature.
That's cool.
Yeah, Tony, I absolutely love that idea. Blends right in well with some of the action and the work that we've done, and some of the partnerships we've formed already with some juvenile justice and restorative justice groups across the state. The state Senate just last fall formed a special committee to deal with juvenile and emerging adult issues just like this, trying to break and destroy permanently that prison pipeline, right? And I'd be honored to walk with you on that journey.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about, at this point, getting other districts on board with it. If you think you can move this needle and get it voted on by June 1st and get it back to me, I would be happy to work on it with you. Going through some of the language, just the formatting of it, working with your legal counsel. And then when MASC gets to vote, that would be down in Hyannis in November of 2024, which I know butts up right close against some city elections. So we got to be careful with that one there. I don't know how many of you guys have already gotten this little booklet here. It has the date for next year's Delegate Assembly and MASC-MASS joint conference down in Hyannis. Not sure if we've landed on a day exactly yet for the Delegate Assembly, but the joint conference in Hyannis next year, or this year, 2024, is the 6th through the 9th, November 6th through November 9th. So that's when the Delegate Assembly would happen, Tony, and that's where we would actually ask the people or the committee or the individual who submitted the resolution to come up to the mic, give a brief rationale and description of why this should be adopted by our Delegate Assembly. There might be some questions, there might be some debate, but man, just knowing where we've been leaning recently, I could see that thing take off. And being the president-elect, knowing that that would be one of my charges in the year that I'd be president, I would be so proud to carry that for the organization.
One question, Jason.
Yeah, Tim.
June 1st, is that a drop dead date?
Well, I will defer to the executive director if Glenn wouldn't mind answering that question. It typically is a drop dead date, but I don't know if we historically have any precedent for flexibility, Tim.
That date has generally been, whatever date it was, used to be July, has been pretty etched in stone. Some of the other stuff can be flexible, like the awards and nominations, except nominations for officers and submission of resolutions would need to be in on time.
Glenn, it's
So
just
if
that
I
we only have
understood go ahead, Tim, sorry.
sorry. Glenn, we only have one more scheduled meeting left. We have a meeting this week coming up,
Yeah.
but it's a special meeting.
Yeah.
But it leaves us only one meeting left for the rest of the year.
Well, the resolutions committee is going to be meeting in June, and that's why the stuff has to be in. I suppose you could, if something came in late, I suppose we can send it to the resolutions committee and they can make a decision about it. But we really would like everything in by the deadline so that we can have our work done efficiently.
Okay, fair enough.
All of the MASC members got those packets with the nomination forms, the resolution forms. They got them over a month ago. If there's a problem, you can deal directly with the chair of the resolutions committee and work that out with him.
Yeah, so we have a meeting coming up on the 15th. I doubt, I mean, we don't have enough time to put that on the agenda, but myself, the mayor, the chairman, will be calling for some special meetings dealing with finance because we have to approve our budget. So I could, we could always get that resolution passed in one of our budget hearings and just making a.
You could send us a placeholder.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So just a look behind the curtain. I'm convening the resolutions committee on June 20th. So getting the resolutions in by that June 1st deadline gives my members about 2 weeks to really go over it, to come up with the points that they want to discuss, because I like to run a tight meeting. I don't want us sitting there for hours trying to put commas in certain places, if you know what I mean. But I'm happy to work with you, Tony, on that. And we can be flexible and try and make sure it works for your timeline and my timeline and try and get this one on. You got me so excited now. I don't want to see it not happen.
So I've been this has been going over probably over a year. So I've been reading up on this and looking up at the laws and trying to see, where I know this is like a hot topic, doing my research, but I think this is the leap that the Commonwealth needs to take. And those, like I said earlier, looking at, the age of individuals that are getting incarcerated has been dropping. The data's there, it shows it, but I think, it's worthwhile for, the state to raise that age from 16 to 18.
So can I just get a piece of point of clarification though? So the deadline though is only for the delegate assembly, correct? So in theory, if he was able to get enough support from other school committee members, we bypass the delegate assembly and this could happen after the June 1st date. Is that correct? Or
no, it doesn't work that way.
Okay.
If they'd have to have the 5 members from 2 divisions in by by June 1st. Now, one thing that you could do as another alternative, make sure you submit your name to the MASC president for consideration to join the resolutions committee. There's no conflict of interest if you're a member of the resolutions committee and your district has submitted a resolution. So there is the opportunity to have the resolutions committee just accept a late submission if they wanted to.
Okay. Is there?
May I make a suggestion? So there's nothing that's stopping from Tony potentially writing the resolution, with Jason's help or with any of our help. And it actually running through a committee that potentially is actually able to submit and pass it before then, with credit going to Brockton, with other committees then, picking it up along the way. And then to Glenn's point, if it's passed by a committee, goes to the resolutions committee, and by the time the resolution committee meets, Jason can say, and just so you all know, it didn't meet the deadline, but this is also actually passed the following committees from the following divisions. It just simply means that the deadline wasn't met. It may still have the same impression on the resolution committee. And of course, staff's happy to help on these things if that's useful.
Great thinking, Tracy. I like, yeah, this is a team go, Tony.
Thank you, thank you. This is something, I sometimes I'm sitting at work in front of the computer and I'm looking at these laws and I'm like, how can I change this? I said, okay, I have somebody that's a state senator. I got a voice. We have our state senator represents Brockton. We had this conversation. So I think if all of us collectively push for this, I mean, like we said, we're a 2,500 plus membership and we can put some pressure on this. I mean, we've done it with the Student Opportunity Act, so I think we can do it with this one.
Can you tell us who your cousin is, who's a state senator?
Liz Miranda, 5th District in Suffolk.
Oh, yeah. She's a freshman with our friend from Worcester, Robin Kennedy there.
Yeah.
They have a tight team of people that hang out together. That's great.
Yeah, we blood cousins.
That's
I went
nice.
to college with her and she's amazing.
Yeah.
Any other towns that are on the call thinking about resolutions?
Hi, it's Alicia. I'm multitasking, so no camera. But I am on a vocational technical school committee, Neshoba Tech.
Yep.
And I'm working with my Neshoba Tech committee to put forth a resolution asking that the governor and the legislature support expansion of seats, expansion of access to vocational technical programs. We're all operating off deep wait lists, and we have these massive voc tech deserts across the state where there's no access to Chapter 70 programming whatsoever.
That's right.
And I know that there's been a lot of talk about the lottery, but the lottery is not going to fix the fact that there are not enough seats for the kids who are reaching out to these programs. So we are working on a resolution for that.
Awesome.
Well, I hear that after recently sitting down with the vocational division of MASC, a paper just came out that did note that there is no systemic discrimination in the policies or the students who are attending our vocational schools throughout the state, with the exception of 4 schools that had been noted. And MAVA, which is the State Association of Vocational Administrators, has supported DESE going in and remediating any issues with protected classes not being represented accurately in the student population of those 4 schools. But without a doubt, there is a desire and a need for more seats in the school. And this is a multifaceted issue. I would appreciate that resolution as the legislative chair. We've been down in DC year after year asking for the reauthorization of the Perkins Act, which is where a lot of the federal dollars come in to vocational and technical education. For those of you who run any Chapter 74 programs or send kids over to technical and vocational schools, to get a new program started, you don't get the Chapter 74 money right away. You have to prove it out, you have to build it. And very often school districts across the state use Perkins funds to fund the teacher in the program until that Chapter 74 reimbursement starts rolling in from the state.
Yes.
When we were down in DC most recently, because Perkins is getting ready to be reauthorized, or they might just continue it on, but it's supposed to be reauthorized this fiscal year. We asked them to add dollars for infrastructure, right? Help us build some of these schools, help us put some seats in. What I can tell you right now is there's lots of schools where eighth graders, over 50% of the eighth graders want to join their CTE program, their vocational school, their technical school, their agricultural school. It is cool to be in a technical school nowadays. It is not where you put the leftovers anymore. These kids are realizing there's good jobs there, there's security, there's a future, and you don't have to go to college to be successful. We sold that lie to too many kids, and there's a lot of people drowning in debt because of it, right? So let's expand those vocational schools, but how do we do it without the dollars to make these programs work? So I would love for MASC to put a resolution forth that I can rest on when I'm talking to my legislators, when I'm talking down on Capitol Hill. Before COVID, believe it or not, there was actually a bill for $100 billion for schools. Just schools, $100 billion, guys.
Wow.
COVID hit, went away. Then someone tried to put it in the American Rescue Plan, ARPA, right? Oh, hey, this would fit in perfectly. It was one of the things that got cut out to make sure it passed, right? I am thankful for all the ARPA funds our cities and towns got. I'm thankful for all the ESSER dollars that we got. But that was really to hold on and do our best during a crisis. It wasn't to help us move forward and provide the education our kids deserve, right? So we need to look also at MSBA funding for vocational schools and make sure that the dollars being provided by the state for vocational and technical schools actually mirrors what those schools need to build up square footage wise for the labs to be safe places and modern for the kids to learn from. So I'd be thrilled to see that. Absolutely thrilled. Give every kid, regardless of their zip code, right, the option to choose what kind of education they want to pursue.
Yeah.
Go the academics. Do you want to go CTE? Do you want to do a blend of the two? Because guess what? We can make you career or college ready in a traditional high school, but also in a good CTE school nowadays in 2024. So
Absolutely.
thank you. That's a great.
And we are very lucky at Neshoba Tech that our superintendent is actually the vice president of MAVA. So she is very in tune to all of that. So
Yeah,
that will
that's
be here soon.
in the maps, the desert maps are really interesting to look at sometime. It's pretty bad. There's not a lot of coverage, like you might expect. I want to, Melissa, did you want to say hello today? Melissa's, we had sent out a couple different Zoom links or team meets, and Melissa got the wrong one. So did you want to say hello to the group?
Hi, all. Greetings, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where I am on vacation, but I'm still present. Nice to see such a good crowd out in here in this meeting today.
Isn't that exciting, Melissa?
So thanks all for joining.
Are you going to get to go back on the beach after we get off the phone?
Tomorrow's a new day.
Tomorrow's a new day. Thanks for being here. New Bedford is represented.
Absolutely.
For sure. Thank you. Anybody else here?
Could I throw out a so we mentioned that the resolutions that are about to expire, and I was just looking through the list, and if I'm reading it correctly, resolution 8 was a simple resolution for access to menstrual supplies that did not go through somehow.
No, time out.
Okay.
Just want to clarify. Those are resolutions that have been adopted by MASC.
Okay.
But because of the new bylaw, it needs to either be reaffirmed or it's going to fall off of our docket.
Okay. So, but I mean, it's I see. You know, it didn't move beyond our introduction to come. Okay.
Well, no, just to let you know where the advocacy goes, right?
Right.
Believe it or not, we've gotten the state Senate to support that bill 2 legislative cycles in a row, but the House has never taken it up.
Oh.
So we've gotten halfway there, but the House hasn't taken it up.
I mean, yeah. So I'd want to make sure that doesn't expire. I mean, we're talking about a basic part of human dignity. You know, and so while it's not necessarily something that bubbles to the top in terms of hot topics, it shouldn't be something that has to bubble to the top because it's just a basic need, right? And so so if that needs to be reaffirmed, that's definitely something that I think should be there. And another piece, and again, I'm brand new to the whole school committee equation, and politics as a whole. So if there's something that exists, I would love to be educated. But I only got involved because of access. I had the ability to go to school committee meetings in person. I had the ability to watch them on cable access, and it worked for me because I speak English fluently. So I'm wondering if there exists, an opportunity for gateway cities like ours and like many of yours, to have a fund that allows for translation in the dominant languages of our city, and close or having the ASL interpreter present at these meetings, so that whether you're in person or whether you're watching via cable access, you can engage and be a part of the conversation. I mean, we have brilliant educators, health professionals coming from all over the world and coming to Brockton. The idea that we can't tap into their knowledge, and that they don't have immediate access to decisions that are being made about their lives and their children's lives is, kind of appalling. So if there's a way, that already exists that I'm unaware of, I just point me in that direction. But if it isn't something that exists, that's a resolution that I think is worth making, especially for our gateway cities.
Mildred, who's our current president, she's on the Holyoke School Committee. And she and I met by looking at each other across a very crowded room. And it was a resolutions committee. It was one of the first things I stepped into beyond my own school committee as part of MASC. And it was a conversation about putting IEPs into the native languages of the parents and the child. We all know how complicated an IEP can be to read in your native language. Imagine trying to translate it on top of that. And Mildred and I just kind of nodded at each other, and we pushed that one through, and it got voted on by the delegate assembly. So our organization has taken on issues like the one you just mentioned before. And again, that is definitely an idea that we first need to look into to see if there's already some resource, like you said, see if we can identify something that's already been created before we try and make a new wheel. And if not, I think that's something that this organization should take a very hard look at and make sure that we're advocating for the families of our kids. Because again, we have them 180 days a year for 7 hours. If we can support their folks back home, that would be an ideal of our organization as well.
Hey, Jason,
Great.
quick question on this whole topic about the resolutions that are set to expire. Would it be possible to have on this website that if a committee has reaffirmed this and has championed that, yes, they want to extend this, so that at least we know, looking at this, that okay, hey, we're cared for the first one, and it saves the whole process of trying to go through and get it reaffirmed with our own individual school committees.
So I've gone through the list of all the resolutions passed in the past 8 years, and we weeded out the ones that we've already accomplished, that we've already pushed across the finish plate. We had a conversation about that with the legislative committee to make sure we all agreed that it had actually been accomplished. We renamed some of them and said that they had been partially accomplished. They're on the list too. So anything we don't feel like we've brought all the way to what our membership originally intended in the resolution is back on that list again. I can tell you right now, Al, if some of these don't get adopted by some of the local school committees out there, I wouldn't be surprised if the board of directors of MASC themselves put some of them on the docket for the delegate assembly as well. I would not want to dissuade anybody, especially people who are kind of nervous about getting into resolutions, by saying, hey, somebody already adopted this one. I want to leave that whole list out there for anybody who feels passionate about something, so we can really get a breadth of school committees from across the state to jump in. But if there's anything that really is going to get left by the side, I give you my sincere promise that I will make sure that it makes it onto the delegate assembly.
Tracy, I saw your hand held.
No, I was gonna say that I think if I was understanding Al's question correctly, it was if we already know that committees have already sort of adopted them, could we update the list? But Jason was saying that he wants them adopted as widely and by as many people as possible, so we already got there.
Okay,
I'm literally hoping, like, when we get down to the delegate assembly in November, if I can stand and say, I would like to vote the slate of expiring resolutions with a single vote. And I would love to see that just go through in that manner, instead of us going through things that our association has already affirmed once, that other school committees, especially multiple school committees, have said, we can't let this one
yeah,
go.
that's, yeah,
And vote it that way at the delegate assembly, and then we can spend more of our time looking at the new ideas that people are bringing to the table.
awesome, awesome.
I have a question on so would it be, so the resolution is basically to amend the law, relative to, raising the age from 16 to 18. How much detail are we, I'm not we're policymakers, we're not lawmakers, but, we're working towards that. But how much detail would it be in that resolution? Because it's, when you look at the law, it's just amending that, changing that age bracket.
That's enough detail.
Right.
Then,
Yeah.
then we figure out how to craft the language to meet the goal. You set out the goal, raise the age to 18. Drafting
Okay.
of legislation would be done in collaboration with legislators.
Okay.
Yeah, and Tony, I really think the whereases that you can bring from your professional experience and also from your school committee lens,
Yeah,
I think it would be powerful. Very
Okay.
powerful.
agree.
Excuse me for being late, and you may have already gone over this, but trying to, one of the reasons why I was like, can we do a resolution meeting? And then I show up a half hour late, right? But Jason, did you go over like how to get these resolutions like to a school committee meeting? Is that something that's under like old business, new business? Do I have to talk to the chair about it prior to that I want to put forth this resolution?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you would definitely want it to be on the posted agenda, so nobody could challenge it after the fact as being deliberation and a vote on an item that wasn't posted. I would loop in the chair. If you have someone who's also potentially your legislative agent, or if you have the subcommittee that deals with legislative items, you might want to loop them in as well. Obviously being discreet and careful that you're not deliberating prior to your open session, just letting them know you want to bring this forth and have a discussion and a possible vote. And please put this on the agenda. That's typically the way it's done. After the vote's taken, again, you can simply email me, and you don't have to use one of the forms in the fancy book we send out. If you want to, feel free to. You can just send it to me in email version, and just certify the vote from your recording secretary or the chair of your committee saying, on this date, we took such and such a vote. This was how the vote came out. Here's the resolution. We're submitting it to you. And I'll send a very, what seems curt and cold email back saying, I'm in receipt of your resolution. Thank you for the time and effort for your students on behalf of MASC, blah, blah, blah. Right? Just so you know I got it, and it's in time for me to then bring to the resolutions committee meeting on June 20th.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, if it's
Thanks.
not perfect, don't stop. Don't hesitate because you're trying to get something perfect. We're never going to get there. This such thing as good enough, especially if it's good for kids, right? We can play with it and craft it and work it. And like I said earlier, Glenn and I are the two forward-facing members of MASC when it comes to legislation, and a lot of these resolutions are legislative leaning. We don't bring the resolution with us and say, hey, see, this, we say we've had a vote, a resolution has been brought forth. This is what we want to work with you on. Because it's really a partnership. We're not telling the legislators, hey, you need to, we have like-minded friends on Beacon Hill and Capitol Hill. We know who go to talk to when we want certain things done. And they want the same things you and I want. They just don't necessarily have the touch point that you and I have as school committee members. So we're so valuable to the legislators in their day-to-day operation when it comes to education and kid-centered policy, because we do it all the time. You can become their greatest asset instead of a pain in their asset. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Sam Lambert, I see you.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so when we've put forward resolutions, I always reach out to the legislative aides of our state delegation to see if one, they're interested in like championing it, their constituents, right? Well, if they happen to be in the district. And it's been successful. So Senator Sal DiDomenico is one of mine, and he does have a lot of education focused, and it's been helpful in getting it passed because he's there. We can invite him up for questions. So it might just be something, if you think there might be questions about, and a lot of times it's not, and this is my experience, but we've had a lot of turnover, like brand new committee multiple times now. And you get the blank faces like, what am I committing to? And so having a senator, especially if it has a legislative focus, having the state senator or a state rep there, you can invite up and ask questions of, like, has been helpful in giving my fellow committee members confidence in saying, yeah, I do support that.
Yeah, and Sam, sometimes legislators will put forth legislation that we agree with, and it doesn't get adopted. We're about to end a 2-year legislative cycle. So next January, there's going to be a slew of bills that get refiled. We can actually work with our legislators the exact opposite way and take some of